Hi, I'm Justin Morris. I'm refuting my opponent's proposition that the economic benefits of nuclear power outweigh the environmental problems that it causes. The three, or actually four things that I'm going to speak about tonight are that my opponent made the Chernobyl nuclear disaster in Ukraine seem as though it was less harmful than it actually was by misstating the number of resulting casualties. Second thing is that he claims that nuclear energy is actually cheaper than other alternatives. The third thing is that I'm going to make my own claim of why it's not better, is that disposal of nuclear waste is an enormous problem worldwide due to the ecological harms that it presents. And the fourth thing is the obvious safety issues that have been present for decades with nuclear power. Anyway, my first point is that my opponent made the Chernobyl nuclear disaster in Ukraine seem as though it was less harmful than it actually was, and misstated the number of resulting casualties. Now we all know that the problem with nuclear power is that radiation is produced. Radiation causes cancer and kills people, which is why the nuclear bombs are so harmful. So he claims that only 30 people were killed due to the explosions and fire which occurred on April 26, 1986 at Chernobyl nuclear power plant in Ukraine. However, there were only 28 firemen and severely exposed workers who died during the first few days after the accident. On the other hand, the disaster released massive amounts of radiation into the surrounding areas, which resulted in much larger problems than merely the death of 28 people. The World Health Organization reports that as of December 2000, the number of people evacuated and resettled from the severely contaminated areas of Belarus, Russia, and Ukraine was 300,400 people. It is also estimated by the World Health Organization that the total number of deaths attributable to Chernobyl disaster is 4,000 due to, obviously, the radiation problems and cancer that occurred as a result of that. My second point is responding to his comment that nuclear energy is cheaper. Actually, nuclear energy is more expensive than other carbon-free renewable energy sources. It's actually also 10 times less efficient. At 25 to 30 cents per kilowatt hour, the cost of power from nuclear plants is approximately triple the current price of electricity in the United States. This is from an article called The Staggering Cost of Nuclear Power from the Center of American Progress. Nuclear waste must be treated very carefully as well as guarded to prevent radioactive materials from falling into the wrong hands. This management of waste costs monumental amounts of money before any permanent storage of materials is arranged. The reason that they have to guard these materials is obviously when you have highly radioactive materials, it automatically becomes a terrorist threat because not only do you have a bomb, but you have a bomb that's putting radiation into the environment. It's going to kill people. The third point is that disposal of nuclear waste is an enormous problem due to the ecological harms that it presents. The process of disposing of nuclear waste is a very long one, considering that it takes tens of thousands of years for the more radioactive waste to lose its radioactivity and therefore be safe once again. The most radioactive pieces of these nuclear power plants are the fuel rods, which are the fuel is mainly plutonium and uranium. The fuel rods alone are placed in a pool full of boric acid after being removed from the reactor where they are supposed to stay for 6 months in order to cool down and release some of the radioactivity. However, since there are currently no permanent storage sites in the world, these exhausted fuel rods often spend years in these pools. This is from the main nuclear energy article on the Think Quest library. They are then mixed with glass and stored in giant cooled concrete structures where they must be monitored and guarded. And this is very difficult to store these things because obviously you have radioactive material and it you have to put it 1,500 feet deep in the ground for it to go anywhere, and then when you're transporting it, people don't want it coming through the area because it's a risk if anything goes wrong. Also, fuel rods are not the only nuclear waste that needs to be disposed of carefully. Everything that comes into contact with any of the radioactive materials used in the fission processes also becomes contaminated. Also, these pieces of waste are less radioactive than other components, such as fuel rods, but they still require hundreds of years to become safe again. In conclusion, I hope that I've helped you to see that nuclear energy is not, as of right now, a very safe or economical approach to energy. Thank you.
All right, well, on the first point, you are challenging the advocate's argument about the Chernobyl case, and I thought that you did a good job suggesting that the evidence was underestimating the long-term impact. The cost issue, I think, is the clearest argument where there's clash between the advocate's point and yours, and you've got some pretty good information on this. There's not much explanation about what's problematic with the advocate's evidence or reasoning, and I think you need to develop those points a little bit more. The other arguments are counterclaims for the most part, and I think that they can be applied to some of the advocate's secondary issues a little bit more directly. We're going to have to make those inferences about how they work, and I don't think you want the audience to have to work that hard, but you did a good job about suggesting what the problems are on each of those points, and you provided a little bit of evidence on each of those, although you want to give the source citations on some of the factual data there, because I don't doubt that it's true. In fact, I know most of what you said was true, but that's just because I've heard all this stuff a lot. So I think you want to make sure that you provide that grounds for the evidence that the audience is listening to. All right, thank you.